Once an agenda is set, a new speakers list is opened and formal debate proceeds. Normally, debate begins with delegates making policy statements and suggesting broad solutions.
Are there any points or motions on the floor? United Kingdom.
Motion to open the speakers list to discuss transboundary pollution with a speaking time of 90 seconds.
That motion is in order and does not require a procedural vote. At this time, I will open up a new speakers list. If you wish to be placed on the speakers list, please raise your placards. Australia, Indonesia, Pakistan, Botswana, Philippines, Hungary, United States, France, Romania, Brazil, Costa Rica, Republic of Tanzania, United Kingdom, Chile, Somalia. After this point, if you wish to be added to the speakers list, remember to send a note to the dais. The speaking time is set at 1.5 minutes. If any member wishes to change the speaking time, you may make a motion to do so after any speaker has concluded his or her remarks. Are there any points or motions on the floor? Seeing none, United Kingdom, you are recognized to speak for 1.5 minutes. I will tap my gavel lightly when you have 10 seconds remaining and firmly once the time for your speech has expired.
The United Kingdom believes that the only way to efficiently solve the problem of transboundary pollution is through regional bodies creating agreements. The United Kingdom would encourage that each regional body develop guidelines that are subject to review by the UNEP. These agreements would include terms of accountability and a mechanism for cleaning up the pollution.
Speaking is fundamental to your participation in committee. You must verbalize your ideas and support your arguments clearly and concisely, whether you speak from prepared notes or extemporaneously. Although most of the speeches are delivered without rehearsal, there are occasions when formal speeches can be given. These usually occur during general debate on a specific issue or during opening policy statements. Prepared statements may need to be altered during general debate to respond to points made by other delegates.
I yield my time to the United States.
The delegate from the United Kingdom has yielded her speaking time to the United States. Before we continue, let's take a moment to explore yields. Once a speaker has finished addressing the committee, he or she can yield any remaining time to another member, accept questions, or sit down and the director will absorb the remaining time.
The delegate from the United Kingdom has 45 seconds remaining and would like to yield the time to the delegate from the United States. The United States, do you accept this yield?
Yes.
The United States now has 45 seconds to address the body.
The United States of America would sincerely like to echo the sentiments that the United Kingdom just expressed, but we feel that it is important that we develop a timetable to which these agreements should be set. As we currently feel that a timetable of 2 years would be an excellent way so that all regional bodies will be able to form environmental agreements by then. We are open to hearing all ideas, and we hope that we will come to a consensus.
Thank you, United States. Your time has expired.
In addition to yielding to another member, a speaker may also accept points of information or questions. It is important to note that the speaker does not yield to questions. He or she accepts questions.
Are there any points or motions on the floor? Seeing none, Indonesia, you're now recognized for 90 seconds.
The Republic of Indonesia strongly feels that deforestation caused by forest fires is a topic that this committee must address. Indonesia itself is responsible for a large proportion of greenhouse gases because of deforestation forest fires. Indonesia feels that a regional response by regional organizations such as ASEAN could be extremely helpful in combating forest fires. Indonesia would now like to accept questions.
Indonesia has chosen to accept points of information or questions. The delegate has 1 minute remaining. Please note that both the question and the answer will be included in the 1 minute. Questions should be concise and address the content of the speech given by the speaker. Are there any points or motions on the floor? Russian Federation, to what point do you rise?
I rise to a point of information.
Indonesia, do you accept a point of information from the Russian Federation?
Yes.
Russian Federation, you are now recognized.
Thank you. What exactly do you believe specific countries should be responsible for within their own borders?
Indonesia feels that countries should be responsible for strengthening their own law enforcement. NGOs such as the United Nations Developmental Program can be used, and Indonesia feels that if these countries strengthen the accountability and the force of their security, that forest fires can be more effectively fought.
Thank you, Delegate. The speaker's time has expired. Are there any points or motions on the floor?
We've seen how to yield speaking time to another member and how to accept questions. It is important to note that there are no double yields. For example, we saw the United Kingdom yield to the United States. It would be unacceptable for the United States to then yield to another delegate. Because accepting questions is not considered a yield, a country like Chile could accept a yield from Indonesia and then accept questions. Likewise, it would be acceptable for Indonesia to accept questions and then yield to another member during the question and answer session if time permits. For countries represented by 2 delegates, it is unnecessary to yield between each delegate. Yields and the acceptance of questions are only permitted during formal debate, not during caucuses.
Let us now move on to another important aspect of debate, points and motions. During formal debate, delegates are given the opportunity to move from certain actions and to rise to points. These motions and points serve a wide variety of purposes. While motions come in many forms, there are only 3 types of points: the point of order, the point of parliamentary inquiry, and the point of personal privilege. Let's observe a few of these points in action.
Costa Rica, you are now recognized to speak for 2 minutes. Chile, to what point do you rise?
Point of order, I believe the speaking time is 90 seconds and not 2 minutes.
You're correct. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Costa Rica, you are now recognized to speak for 90 seconds.
Costa Rica emphasizes that transboundary pollution is a problem. However, Costa Rica is not a major contributor to the pollution. However, it is a recipient.
Point of order is used only in the case of an error in procedure, bringing this issue to the attention of the director. A member rising to a point of order may not speak on the substance of the matter under discussion. Points of order can be made during procedural or substantive debate. If necessary, a point of order may interrupt a speaker.
Chile does agree that transboundary pollution is a problem, and Chile also agrees that it needs to be limited, if not eliminated, in all countries. However, Chile, as a...
Excuse me, Chile. China, to what point do you rise?
Point of personal privilege. I cannot hear the speaker.
Chile, please speak louder.
Okay. Chile does agree that transboundary pollution does need to be limited, if not eliminated, throughout all countries.
A member may rise to a point of personal privilege in order to bring to the attention of the director some physical discomfort, such as, I can't hear, or it's too cold. A point of personal privilege can be made during procedural or substantive debate and may interrupt a speaker if necessary.
Are there any points or motions on the floor at this time? Hungary, to what point do you rise?
Point of parliamentary inquiry. What is his current speaking time and where are we on the speakers list?
The current speaking time is 90 seconds. We are on the 5th speaker of the speaking list. Are there any other points or motions on the floor at this time? Seeing none, France has 90 seconds.
A member may rise to a point of parliamentary inquiry when uncertain of what is going on in committee. Delegates may use this point to have the director explain any procedural matter during procedural or substantive debate, as well as voting procedure. A member may not interrupt a speaker on a point of parliamentary inquiry.
Now that we understand points, let's move on to motions. We've already seen the motion to open a speaker's list, as well as a motion to set the agenda. A delegate may motion for any rule of parliamentary procedure. Motions may not interrupt a speaker and are made during procedural and substantive debate. Procedural motions, like the adoption of the agenda, setting of the speaker's time, closing of the speaker's list, reopening of the speaker's list, recess of the meeting, and the adjournment of debate, require procedural votes. Remember, during a procedural vote, all members must vote and there are no abstentions. Substantive motions, like the motion to vote on divided sections, amendments, or resolutions, require a substantive vote. During a substantive vote, members may abstain as well as vote with rights. A common motion in committee is to suspend the rules for some type of informal debate, a moderated or unmoderated caucus. During the suspension of the rules, the director will not entertain points or motions. During a moderated caucus, a formal speakers list is not drawn up, and delegates are recognized to speak by the director for brief intervals. This allows for more direct communication between delegates.
Are there any points or motions on the floor? France, to what point do you rise?
I motion to suspend the rules for the purposes of a moderated caucus for 10 minutes on instances of freshwater pollution and policy response with 30-second speaking times.
That motion is in order. We will now take a vote on suspending the rules for the purposes of a 10-minute moderated caucus on instances of freshwater pollution and policy response with 30-second speaking times. This is a procedural vote, so everyone must vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? By a vote of 15 for and 5 against, this motion passes. Before I suspend the rules to begin the moderated caucus, are there any points or motions on the floor? Seeing none, we will begin a moderated caucus. All those wishing to speak, please raise your placards.
Notice that France set the purpose of the moderated caucus, the length of the time of the moderated caucus, and the speaking time when making the motion. There are no restrictions on the length of moderated caucus, although the director will usually use his or her discretion when entertaining motions for caucuses.
Coral reefs are an integral part of our international environment, especially around the equator in countries like Indonesia and Australia and other Central American countries, etc. Because of this, Indonesia strongly feels that they should be protected from transboundary pollution and from oceanic pollution. Indonesia feels that this can be done through the institution of programs by individual countries and feels that these programs would be extremely effective in fighting or in protecting our coral reefs.
Before I take the next speaker, I'd like to remind the body that the purpose of this moderated caucus is to discuss the instances of freshwater pollution and policy response only, so please keep your speeches related to that topic. All those wishing to speak, please raise your placards. Costa Rica.
Costa Rica would like to thank France, first of all, for addressing the issue of fresh water because it is one of the most important and largest ways that humans are affected by transboundary pollution. One way that Costa Rica would like to suggest helping the pollution in fresh water is by using an NGO such as Life Straws, which are about $2, so in underdeveloped countries, people can use them in order to access purified water so that the pollution in fresh water is no longer a problem. And would also like to bring the attention of the committee that if we continue to talk about fresh water, we should also talk about other types of water and maybe another moderated caucus. Thank you.
Thank you. The time for this moderated caucus has expired. We will now reinstate the rules. Are there any points or motions on the floor?
In addition to a moderated caucus, delegates can also motion for an unmoderated caucus. An unmoderated caucus is a temporary suspension of the rules or recess of the committee meeting. During this time, delegates build consensus, negotiate, and compromise as they develop working papers and resolutions.
Are there any points or motions? Brazil, to what point do you rise?
I move to suspend the rules for a 10-minute unmoderated caucus.
That motion is in order. We will now take a vote on suspending the rules for the purposes of a 10-minute unmoderated caucus. This is a procedural motion, so everyone must vote. All those in favor, please raise your placards. All those opposed? By a vote of 17 for and 3 against, this motion passes. Before I suspend the rules to begin the unmoderated caucus, are there any points or motions on the floor? Seeing none, we will now begin the unmoderated caucus.
Understanding the rules for points and motions is crucial. Before attending the conference, you and members of your team should discuss and practice the rules.